Hey guys, hello again. Just because I'm in the mood, I'm going to do a harm reduction video on methamphetamine and intravenous drug use of methamphetamine and insufflation and eating, plugging. There's a lot of ways to take methamphetamine, but you can't inject it into a muscle because it is toxic for the body. Okay, so methamphetamine is a potent central nervous system stimulant, and it's, from my experience, it's one of the most potent there is. It's the highest. There's other drugs, and then there's methamphetamine. It's highly addictive. It is extremely strong. Makes you feel like you're the king of the world. After a while, you can develop symptoms such as psychosis, loss of oneself. It has a very, very high addiction rate. It's pretty much the only drug in the world that is made for purely recreational purposes. I mean, it was synthesized, I'll get to that, 1893 was discovered, and World War II, Hitler used it a lot. His veins were completely destroyed by the end of his regime, and that's probably one of the reasons that the Germans failed, because he was doing so many drugs by the end of that point: morphine, methamphetamine, and it was used among soldiers as well to keep them going. So it is used in the States. Sorry, the States consider it, it's disoxin, I think, as the States are the only, America are the only country that consider it therapeutic. They use it for attention deficit disorder, which I think is ridiculous. They already have Adderall, which you can get straight over the counter. Here we have dextroamphetamine, which is it's levo and dextroamphetamine. Both, I'll get to that later, but it's very hard to get in Australia. Ritalin, all that sort of stuff. Australia is a quarantine country, and it's very hard to get good plant-based materials. So cocaine, heroin, a lot of it is stepped on, and it's hard to get a source where it is pure, because we're a quarantine country. It rarely gets in, and when it does, it's stepped on, which means it's cut. Meth with MSM, heroin with sugar, and it can be quite toxic, which gets back to the point of decriminalization, even like to the point where I believe that drugs should be available to people in a booth. You go in, you tell them what drug, they ask you what drugs you're using, if you've used it before, the right dose, because people are using it. It's not taboo anymore. Drugs are not taboo. It's a part of our culture, and for the people who want to use them, they need to be at a safe pharmaceutical level. It's all the adulterants that go into these drugs and the cutting agents that kill people, you know? Like, so for harm reduction purposes, we need to have some sort of system set up where it's discreet, just like we have in Australia. We have a needle syringe program. You go in, you ask, you can get 50 needles, you can get 100 needles, and they ask you what drug you're using, how often you use it, and they're very respectful for it, and it's a great system. You can also buy them in pharmacies, and they're very discreet and accepting as well. So yeah, there's two levomethamphetamine and dextromethamphetamine. That's the racemic mixture. So levomethamphetamine is responsible for, let me just bring that up. It's an ingredient in decongestants, and I believe one of them is levo is responsible for the neuroephedrine release agents. So levo is more for ADHD, that kind of thing. Dextro is the ADHD one. Levo is the euphoric one. And if you get clean meth, rarely you'll get psychosis, rarely you'll get, it won't be as dirty, and you can tell when meth is dirty. So there's two mixtures. It's rarely prescribed because of the neurotoxicity and potential for recreational use. As an aphrodisiac, it makes you very horny. And euphoriant, it's a very euphoric drug. You feel on top of the world, you feel very amazing. Dextromethamphetamine is a much stronger CNS stimulant than levomethamphetamine. As I said, dextro will give you the jitters, the shakes, the agitation. Levo is the clean, like euphoria. And so I'll just bring up the metabolic structure again. There it is. So it's made from the ephedra plant. So all drugs are made from a plant. They're plant-based. They're like everything on this planet. Cocaine, the coca leaf, heroin, the opium, poppy seeds. But with methamphetamine, and especially in Australia, methamphetamine is made from pseudoephedrine. So ephedrine is quite hard to get, so we have massive restrictions, just like in the States. They're called Smurfs. They go around, buy pseudoephedrine, sell it to dealers and stuff, or production cooks to make the methamphetamine. And it's pseudoephedrine on its own is very much dextro. It's like a strong cup of coffee. It doesn't have the euphoric effects that methamphetamine does. And because Australia's a quarantine country, we can't. We have poppy seeds in Tasmania, which will get shot if you try and grab one. We don't make cocaine here, but you can make methamphetamine in the backyard using things like lithium, getting the red phosphorus out of these things. And the thing that makes it so neurotoxic is the fact that when people make these things, they miss steps. You got to do, when you cook this stuff, you've got to do it at the exact right moment. Otherwise, there'll be adulterants left in there, and because all these chemicals they say it's in there, they're not those chemicals. It's not like lithium and drain cleaner. They're extracting the element from that to make the methamphetamine. So the lithium from the batteries, the red phosphorus from whatever that is, But it's the bad cook that can make it quite toxic. And I've had my feet swell up. I've had a lot of psychosis caused by badly cooked methamphetamine. So routes of administration: oral, ingestion, intravenous. It does say intramuscular actually. Smoke inhalation. People smoke it. It can get into the body any which way. I would suggest not against intramuscular because it's. Maybe I might be wrong about that, but it can create what's it called? Like bumps. What are they called? You know the bumps where you miss a vein and there's a big bump from where the meth is, and for instance, so like if there's a bump there, like where the meth is sitting above the skin, between the skin and the body, with opiates and heroin, because we have opioid receptors in our heads, it'll seep in and it won't do much damage. But because it's so toxic, methamphetamine, it's been made through a very complicated and elaborate chemical process. It'll burn and it will create a lot of problems, and people have had limbs cut off because of that very reason. So I'll go on more about intravenous in a bit. Australia, Schedule 8, which is the highest. A lot of these countries, Schedule 1, which is the opposite, the same thing as Schedule 8. Every country considers this drug dangerous, extremely dangerous. Bioavailability: oral 70%, that's quite high. IV, obviously, in every case 100% because it's getting straight to the bloodstream, which doesn't necessarily make it come on faster. It if it goes through the nose, it will. Or if you smoke it, you'll get the hit, but probably a bit faster. But when you inject it, you get a gasp, and that's because it's a bronchital. It's made from something that the inhalers that clear the airways, and you can get quite bad lungs from that. But you get this massive gasp, and that's all. That's mainly the thing that gets people addicted, because it's a massive rush. You go, and then it hits your head, and your head goes warm in your whole body, and then you start to feel the effects. And the effects through intravenous last quite a long time. Elimination half-life 5 to 30 hours. So yeah, it depends on the dose. Duration of action, 10 to 20 hours. As I said, very potent chemical, extremely potent. Lasts quite a long time. That's why people turn from speed, old school speed amphetamine to methamphetamine. Okay, methamphetamine hydrochloride. They are illicitly trafficked and sold owing to their potential for recreational use. So no therapeutic use, really. Occurs in parts. We have a bit of an epidemic in Australia. We call it ice over here. A lot of countries do, but because it's made out in the bush, and obviously, as I said, we can't make heroin or anything like that. We get it imported, and we often get meth imported too from the Asian countries, but it can be made here quite easily, and that's where it's made badly as well. In America, you can get methamphetamine over the counter, and a lot of you Americans know the cotton buds that you can take out and soak, and all that sort of thing. America is a pharmaceutical giant. Like they want their OxyContin sold. They want all those sort of things. There's an opiate epidemic, and they're getting onto it. But in some states in America, like they'll give the methamphetamine back to you if the police catch you. They'll give you the charge, but they'll give you the drugs back, which is ridiculous. It's banned in. It's a psychotropic substance. It's a very dextroamphetamine is a more potent drug, and that means that you'll get a lot more physical effects. As I said, some people like that. You know, it's crank. You Americans call it. I don't like the crank. In low to moderate doses, methamphetamine can elevate mood, increase alertness, concentration, energy, and fatigue individuals, or any individual. Reduce appetite. A lot of people use it for weight loss. High doses, which I've experienced. I was using 1 gram a day at one point intravenously, and smoking through a pipe. It can induce psychosis, break down a skeletal muscle. Dopamine is a massive part of how we operate, how we move. And when dopamine is depleted, because methamphetamine smashes that dopamine like 100 times faster than any other drug. That's why the high is so intense. And if you lose that dopamine, people can start really breaking down. Seizures, bleeding in the brain. And withdrawals, it's it's more in the head, but I got panic attacks from it. Panic attacks are where you feel like I felt like the world was closing in on me. I couldn't escape. I couldn't breathe. That sort of thing. You can get delirium, mood swings. Psychosis is quite a powerful experience in a bad way. High addiction, the high dependence, and it can lead to it's more likely to lead to a post-acute withdrawal syndrome. So not much. You might sleep for a few days, but depression. Methamphetamine is very neurotoxic. It's a phenylethylamine and substituted amphetamine chemical class. So I'm not going to go through the medicinal use. We all know about the recreational use, obviously, because it's so powerful. That's a crystal methamphetamine just there, and the way you can tell if there's a lot of agents going out there like MSM. If you cook it right, which is MSM is a muscle helper, it can turn into a shard-like appearance, and it does nothing. And a lot of meth is cut with MSM. ISO, which mimics MSM, it's a precursor to another chemical. There's not much information about it, but you'll often get a headache after you take it because it looks exactly the same as meth, and you'll get a headache and you'll feel a bit depressed, and very dextro effect as well. You can tell just for harm reduction, and so you're taking meth. You can see the change in the colours in the rock, and one of the rocks should be hard to break. You shouldn't be able to break it with your finger. If it breaks and it cracks into small little pieces, it's ISO or it's something else. So just never inject it when you first get it. Smoke it, snort a bit, even eat a bit, or taste it. Just check it out, because it could be bloody anything. Okay, so methamphetamine is it's crystal methamphetamine. So the crystal part is the crystallization. Crystal meaning pure. Anything that's a crystal is in its purest form, which is a bit false, because you can add MSM and you can add stuff to it to form a crystal. But a crystal is supposed to be the purest form of something. And we used to have problems, with speed back in the day, but now it's all methamphetamine, which is much more addictive, much more euphoric. And it's an epidemic in Australia. A lot of people are using it. You can see people walking around the street using it. I mean, not using it, but obviously affected by it, like gurning, which is like rolling your jaw, eyes wide open, like fidgety, often out of their heads. And I've been there, you know what I mean? So intravenous use. If you're going to inject methamphetamine, which I suggest you never do, people, because I regret it so much. Once you do it, you get hooked. To get someone to teach you how to inject, okay? Because if you miss, it can turn into a bump. I forget what it is, but a bump, and like, I've had experiences with that. Luckily, my body must have, it's put if that does happen, put hot water on it, and just hold it, and it'll eventually seep in, and you'll still get high, but just make sure you put hot water on it, and gently, just don't push it in, just gently put a bit of pressure on it. But that takes about 20 minutes. Don't just leave it. And if you're injecting in your hand, don't inject meth into your hand, because if you get, or anywhere below the stomach, because it's too far away from your heart, and you can get blood clots in your legs. Not the hand. Anywhere where a welt is gonna really affect you. Do the crooks of the arm, the forearm, never the neck. If you've ruined all your veins in your arm and you're going for your neck, you've got a problem and you need help. I didn't mean that in a bad way. I mean, yeah, you should get some help. So wipe the spot where you're going to inject once with an alcohol swab, not twice. Don't wipe back and forth. Prepare the solution. Now, 1 point is usually 30 units of liquid. So fill up 25 to 30 for a point and a half, which is 150 milligrams, 100 milligrams. So yeah, fill it up. Yep, and make sure it's all dissolved and all that sort of thing. Because if it's not dissolved, it usually crushes up quite well. You don't have to heat it with a spoon or anything. Like it dissolves in water quite quickly. Just make sure it's dissolved. Make sure you find it, and when you're injecting, make sure you find a vein, because if you find an artery, that pushes blood away from your heart, and you don't want that, because I've experienced that, and you get this massive rush because it goes all to your extremities. It's a bad rush. Make sure you find a vein. Difference between a vein and a artery is a vein will it's the color of the blood, and if it's an artery, it'll come up like swirling into the needle. If it's a vein, it'll sort of flush. And when you're flushing, which is called when the blood comes out, when you're pulling and the blood comes out, don't flush too much, because one, it coagulates the meth. It does, especially with heroin, and it's hard to push back in. And it's also really bad for your veins. So just gently, don't shove it in, just push it slowly in, and then take the needle out, hold, put your arm over your head, put a new alcohol wipe over it, put it over your head, wait for the effects, and don't start on anything. Like, if you're naive, start on half a point, and you shouldn't be injecting if you haven't had an experience with snorting or eating it. So yeah, hopefully that that helps you guys with intravenous use, because I had a lot of problems where all that sort of stuff happened to me. And if it does happen to you, don't freak out. Don't freak out. Just do what I said. Put hot water on it. Just run under the tap. Hold it over. It's not as gruesome as they make it look in like Requiem for a Dream. Like, it's troubling, and like there'll be times when like I've been in a bathroom and I've looked at myself and I'm just covered in blood because I can't get, like, I want that injection. That's how addictive it is. You know, and it robs you of your free time. It changes who you are. So in summary, methamphetamine, stay clear of it, because it changes who you are more than any other substance under the sun. Thanks, guys. I hope this video has been helpful. Once again, my resource has been Wikipedia. Thank you.